Dear friends, yesterday we studied about research, the various types of research, the chief principles associated with the research. So it's an auspicious welcome to all of you here in this presentation today. Today we are going to learn the few important tenets of how to prepare the research proposal here in this presentation. So once again, I am Dr. Atul Suryawanshi, MM College Pachora, Jalgaon district of Maharashtra state is before you with this presentation. So the very foremost question arises in our mind that how to write a research paper, how to write a research proposal for PhD is the very fundamental question before the students when they appear as a research student. So this presentation, these slides will be useful for those students who are striving for quality education. So before going to study this, I want to make you a few things very clear, but there are certain differences between the terms research outline, research synopsis, and a research abstract. So what is outline? Let us study first. As I have denoted here in this slide, outline is a general sketch, account, or report indicating only the main features as of the book, subject, or report. So in general, outline is the rough draft of the research proposal that we have to submit to the university before initiating the research. Outline has been presented before writing the research project. It comprises problem, hypothesis, method used for the research, the chapter scheme in brief, which will be in the rough form, probable conclusions, and the reference book, means the citations concerning research outline. So the thing is very clear now. Most of the students and the research supervisors, they use the term synopsis for outline. Before initiating the research work for PhD doctoral thesis, we have to submit the rough draft to the university of the research proposal, and that rough draft of the research proposal is called as outline. Remember this. When we accomplish our PhD work, when we complete our PhD, and when we going to submit the thesis, PhD thesis to the university, at that time we present synopsis to the university, remember. So these are the certain differences we should know as a research student. I hope that your concept of the research outline is clear now. So let us turn toward the next slide in the series, which informs us about the synopsis of the research proposal. As I told you, synopsis is the brief summary of the research project submitted to the university after accomplishing our research work. The ancient Greek word synopsis means general view. So synonyms including abridgment, as in a shortened version of any work. So this is the short form. Remember, this is the abridged short version of the research work that you have undergone. After completion of the research work, we have to produce or submit the synopsis to the university so that the experts and the research supervisor can get the gist of our research work in brief, within 10 pages most probably. So synopsis is a brief summary of the major points of a written research work. It contains only gist of research work with findings and conclusion. It is written after completing research work. So the point to be noted here, I hope your concept is becoming very clear. regarding the research outline and research synopsis. Before to initiate our PhD in English, what we submit to the university in the rough form, the chapter scheme, the research methodology, the title and the hypothesis, aims or objectives and probable conclusions of the research work is outlined, remember. And when we complete our PhD and when we submit the thesis to the university for further procedure, at that time we submit just a summary of the research project in a Bryce form. It is called synopsis. So synopsis is always presented to the university after completing the research work. Then the next question arises in my mind that what is abstract? Whenever we write the research paper, at that time at the beginning of the research paper, abstract and few important key points or the words have been given there so that I can understand the full research paper in brief in the very beginning. So let us make the concept very clear here. An abstract is a brief summary of a research article, any thesis, review, conference proceeding, or any in-depth analysis of a particular subject, and is often used to help the reader quickly ascertain the purpose of the paper. So abstract is a brief summary of the research paper. Remember this. So we have to remember all these things. Our concept should be very clear before we are going for PhD in any university so that you can understand all these things. Let us read the second paragraph. It is a purely academic writing. So abstract is purely academic thing in a formal tone. It is not informal, it is in the formal writing. Abstract is self-contained and limited to research work alone. So it does not cross the boundary of the research work. It always describes the theme and the gist of the research. It is usually at the beginning of the research paper, having approximately 200 to 300 words approximately. It is accurate, precise presentation of the research work in short. It presents a central idea, gist of the research paper or the research work, which is called abstract in brief. I hope that your concept is clear now. So I attempted to clarify the three important things: outline, synopsis, and abstract. There are certain differences between these words, among these words. So you should be very careful before going to initiate the research work. Such things are asked at a time of examination in the NET and SET papers. So without killing the time, let us turn towards the next slide here in this series. How to write the actual research paper, research proposal, research outline. So many students, after getting registered for PhD research, they fumble, they confuse, they get baffled. There is a chaos among the scholars regarding writing the research proposal or the outline for PhD. So here is the presentation for the same. So let us study without dealing the element of research proposal or how to write the outline for PhD work. First of all, there is title of your research proposal, which is called outline, means before to initiate the PhD work. After writing the title of our work, that we formulate the problem in our mind, we write introduction in the very beginning. Introduction is somewhat background. It is somewhat we say ice-breaking activity before initiating the research. Okay, it is telling the background in introduction. The next point is we have to prove significance of the present research work. At the time in the university, when we go for the personal interview or the viva voce, the expert asks us what is the meaning and significance of your research work, how your research is going to help the society, how your work is beneficial for the students. So we have to prove the significance of our research work. We have to prove before the scholars and the experts that our work is not worth neglecting. It is very much important and significance in this present scenario. So we have solid points for that same. The next point is literary review. So before going to initiate the research, for example, if you are studying, your area of research is Indian writing in English, and you are studying the recent writer Shobha Day, and you are applying psychoanalytical study, means the one approach to the literary text of Shobha Day and analyzing the characters in the light of a psychoanalytical study, then before initiating the study, we have to present literary review. The literary review comprises the review of the newspapers, magazines, articles, MPhil dissertation, PhD thesis from the reputed universities across India and all over the world. So where we can get the sources for the same is the foremost question arises in my mind for the same. So I request you to visit InflibNet for the same. InflibNet is Information Library Sciences Network. If you visit this website, you will receive various ample sources of the thesis before you to analyze and to get the idea of literary review. You have to present before the committee that you have gone through all the related material related to your research topic, and after that you can go to the next point, which is aims and objectives of the research. As I told in my last lecture that aims comprises a broad category here, and the objectives are the subsections or segregated into minute details about regarding the aims. So we have certain aims and objectives. We formulate the problem in our mind and we investigate the same. So we have specific objectives for the research. We have to put it in the outline in the very beginning. Without aims and objectives, the research becomes meaningless. So we have certain problems. We have certain aims and objectives for the research. When we formulate such aims and objectives of the research, the next point is a hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is assumption. This is consideration. What we say अभ्युपगम or गृहीतक in Marathi. कधीही संशोधन सुरू करण्याच्या अगोदर एखादी गोष्ट जी असते ती गृहीत धरली जाते, and that is called hypothesis in English. Remember, we have to consider, we have to assume certain things, that we are going to study the things in a particular way. So the hypothesis may be positive, negative, neutral. So many types of hypotheses are there. After accomplishing in writing the hypothesis of the research work, the next step is methodology. That which method we are going to follow while performing the research. Is it a descriptive methodology, analytical, illustrative? We have to state it in the very beginning of the research, in the research proposal itself, in the outline of the PhD work. So methodology plays a very vital role, which is the core, which is the heart of the research. In fact, when we come to know about methodology, the next point is the scope of the research. We should know the scope, limitations, and drawbacks of the research work. If you are taking 7 novels of the particular writer for the study, or any 3 or 4 volumes of the poetry for the study, it is the scope of your research work. Means how many works of that particular writer, novelist, dramatist, or essays you are going to study. That means the scope of your research work. And we have to limit our PhD thesis. We have to limit our work within these boundaries. There are certain constraints, what we say disadvantages or loopholes of the research work, that are known as limitations of the research work. As we have benefits, we have limitations also. We never cross our limitations. If I am going to study psychoanalytical study on the female characters of Shobha Day in Indian writing in English, I cannot go beyond it and cannot study the male writers. That is the limitation, that is the drawback and loophole of my study, remember. So we have to mention this in the very beginning of the research proposal while writing the rough outline for the PhD work. The next point is work plan. We can say, in other words, work plan means a chapter scheme. There are the rough draft of the chapter scheme. The first chapter, what we say, introduction of the research work. We have to produce certain writers or novelists related to research work. We put it in the very first chapter. The academic contribution, literary contribution of those writers, we mention in that. The second chapter are most probably the core chapters of the research work. We put something, 2 novels or 2 verse collections in that second chapter, then third chapter, then fourth chapter, fifth chapter, most probably is conclusion, which comprises findings and conclusion of the present research study. So we have to plan the work. There should be systematic planning of the work. When we are going to accomplish, we should have, as this research is a time-bound activity. This is not vague thing, remember. So we have to plan certain things. We have to submit 6 monthly progress report to the university for the same, that what we are going to do within the 6 months. So this is systematic, this is scientific, and we have to plan everything. And according to the plan, we should work accordingly. Then only the research work becomes meaningful. Remember, the next point is a conclusion and finding. In the very beginning, though we are not sure about the conclusions and findings of the research study, we have to put it probability of the findings and the conclusion of the research work in the very beginning of the outline, remember. The next is bibliography. Bibliography means what we say reference books. So bibliography can be classified into different sections or segments. The first of all, there are primary sources. Primary sources means the books actually written by that particular author, writer, novelist, dramatist, essayist. Remember, secondary sources are the books written on the primary sources. There are some tertiary sources also. Apart from that, we have to refer newspapers, article, research papers, YouTube sources. Bibliography means internet sources that we refer sometimes. So all these sources that we handle for the present research work as a data, as the printed books, is called bibliography in brief. We should know this. And from the bibliography, we come to know the standard of the research work. If I am pursuing my research in feminism, remember, I have to mention the classic work of feminism in my bibliography. Vindication of the Rights of the Women, written by Mary Wollstonecraft. Then Sexual Politics of Kate Millett. Then Julia Kristeva's book. I have to mention certain books in the bibliography which indicate the standard of my research thesis, remember. And the last point in this outline is further or future possibility of the research. As there are limitations of the research, we have to put it very clearly that my present research work can be extended in such a way in future, so that the upcoming generation and the new researchers will follow your point of view, and your further possibilities of the research, they will continue it. So in this sense, this is the rough outline of how to prepare it. Let us study it by one. The first thing, the element of the research proposal is title. Title should be very attractive, catchy. The title should summarize the main idea of our study. A good title always contains the fewest possible words that adequately describe the content and purpose of the research work. So the very motive and the purpose of the research work should reflect in the title of the research work, remember. So title should be catchy and attractive in that sense. The title should give a fleeting glance of the research work that you are going to carry in detail later. So most of the things depend upon the title of the research work. So it is a skill after all to write the title of the research work. The next point, as I told you, is introduction or writing the background of it. Okay. The introduction provides an overview of the research topic from the broader perspective, while the background provides a detailed understanding of the topic. It is breaking ice activity before to initiate the research paper or a research project. Now, introduction should specify the aims and objectives of the research paper. So, in the very beginning of my research paper, while writing the introduction, I should mention that the present research paper is going to focus on this particular point. I am going to study these things in the present research paper. Okay, we have to specify it. So the aims and objectives should be clearly specified in the very beginning, in the introduction itself, while writing the research proposal. We should offer background. We should offer what we say, some preparedness in the introduction for before writing the paper. So this is the very first thing. After it, as I told you, we have to prove significance of the research. In this present point, the meaning and significance behind writing the research paper or behind writing the outline for PhD should be stated very clearly. The benefits, advantages of the research enhances the importance of the study. So our concept should be very clear at the very beginning of the research. You should state before the committee that what is the meaning, significance and importance of your research work. State it. You should be very clear in your views and your attitudes and manners when you go for viva voce. So significance of the study is vital or important aspect of preparing the research outline. The next point is literary review. It is the review of the literature. It is the study of the earlier research before initiating our own research. So a literary review is a comprehensive summary of the previous research on a topic. The literary review surveys scholarly articles, books, other sources relevant to a particular area of research. A literature review discusses published information in a particular subject area. It is a search and evaluation of the available literature in the given subject or chosen topic area. So we have to search newspapers, various articles, research paper, YouTube, various important sources. I humbly want to cite you once again the very important website InflibNet. Go and visit it. You will get ample theses available in InflibNet related to your subject topic. Search them, study them, so that you will get ample material that what is done, particularly done in your particular research area. When our concept becomes clear regarding that, we have to write it, literary review. That in Indian writing in English or in American English or in British English, such things have been studied, such writers have been studied. But this aspect has not been focused in the previous research itself. So I am going to focus that particular aspect. I am going to study eco-critical analysis, ecological analysis of those novels. I am applying actual psychoanalytical approach to the select novels of that particular writer. We have to state this, which has not been pinpointed and focused by the earlier researchers. We have to mention the limitations and the drawbacks, the loopholes of our research, that our research cannot go beyond certain limits. We have to state this. So, after writing the limitations of this present research work, we have to work out the actual chapter scheme of the research proposal outline. The present plan comprises chapter scheme, design of the research. It presents rough design of the research before to initiate the actual work. Plan helps us to work accordingly in the right direction to achieve the research goal. So there should be preparation of the rough chapterization of this is the design. As I told you in the very beginning, that research is a time-bound activity. Within the 6 months, if we are going to accomplish the first chapter, we have to present this in the very 6 monthly progress report to the university. So we have to plan those things and we have to work according to the plan. As I told you, that research is a very systematic and scientific time-bound activity. Remember, so you should not go vague and astray while working on the research project. You should be very sincere, honest, and truthful. As I am going to mention in the last coming slides about ethics and plagiarism also here in this presentation. So let us turn towards the next point. Here is a conclusion and finding. This is generally the last chapter of our research project, and we have to, at the very beginning when we write outline, we have to mention certain probable findings and conclusion while writing the research. The conclusion of a research paper restate the research problem. When we write conclusion, we have to state the research problem again as a summary of the key arguments and findings, a short discussion of the implications of the research. Conclusion is to make the final statement by interpreting the research finding. So, the finding section of the research describes what the researcher found when the data has been analyzed. Its primary purpose is to use the data collected to answer the research questions posed in the introduction. It is the principal outcome of a research project. So, we have to put probable findings and conclusions while writing the research project. Remember this. And we have to state the certain findings at the end of our research project. And this is the core or heart of your research. At the time of the viva voce in the university, when you will go there for the presentation, for the oral interview, the expert asks us very clearly what are the findings of your research work and how your findings are going to contribute in a meaningful way in the academics. What is the benefit of your research work to the society? So the expert asks this. We should be very clear. The next element, bibliography. Bibliography, reference books. So a bibliography is the list of the sources a work's author is used to create the work. It enlists all the references used to create a piece of writing. So there are primary sources. Primary source means the books actually written by the writer. Those are primary sources. And the secondary sources are those books written on the primary sources, are the secondary sources. So these are the two main sources for the study, printed books. When bibliography is written in the very outline or after accomplishing the research work, we have to use two main citation styles. Remember, this is very much important while doing the research. The first citation method style is MLA, Modern Language Association. Most of the students of literature and social sciences, especially concerning English also, we use MLS style while writing the research proposal, research bibliography. And the students of education especially, who are pursuing their doctoral thesis, writing the doctoral thesis in education, they follow APS style, which is American Psychological Association, the important style of citing or writing the books in the bibliography. So this is about bibliography at the end of the research project or at the end of the outline. Then the foremost question arises in your mind that what is MLS style? We have to know this in brief. MLS stands for Modern Language Association. As I told you, MLS style was found in 1883 by Aaron Elliott. And for the very first time, the Modern Language Association was published in 1951. The first MLA handbook style sheet was published in 1951, and this question was asked in NET examination. So we should study MLA style in detail for further reference. The 9th edition, which is the most recent edition of the MLA handbook, was published by the Modern Language Association in 2021. So the 9th edition the students are following. Now, how to cite the reference? See, when I write the citation in MLA style, I write the surname of the writer, then comma, write the initials of the writer, give full stop, then write the title of the book, make it italics, then city of the publication, for example, Delhi, Mumbai, then the name of the, or what we say, publishing agency, we have to cite this, we have to mention this, then the date of publication. So in this way, this citation becomes complete. So I have cited the example here of MLA style. For example, I want to mention the book Gender Trouble written by Judith Butler. So I should write this Butler, comma, Judith, full stop, Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity, 2nd edition, Routledge, published in 1999. So in such a way, we have to mention the books in MLA style. This is first thing. The second style that I have mentioned here is APA, American Psychological Association. It was observed, found, invented in 1892. In 1952, for the very first time, APA style sheet was used. American Psychological Association publishes first style sheet in 1952. The 7th edition of the APA manual was published in October 2019, is the most current edition. For the reference, author's last name, then first initial, then year we have to mention, then the title of the book, then location and publisher is the example that how to write the book in APA style. For example, the name of the writer, Brader, comma, T, full stop, 2006. So what we do in MLS style sheet, we write the year of publishing at the end of the reference. And we have to write here just beside the name of the writer. Second position. So here is the name of the book in italics, Campaigning for Heart and Mind, How Emotional Appeal in Political Ad Works. This is the name of the book, mix in italics, give full stop. University of Chicago Press, full stop. APA styles complete. So my dear friends, I humbly request you to study these both the styles. If you are the student of literature and want to go for the research work in the university, we have to understand all these things. The next important thing is the future possibilities of the research. So this is the last section of the research, focuses on the future possibilities of the research in English language and literature. The unexplored areas have to be mentioned in this point so that the new researcher would focus on it. And it shows a direction and possibilities of the recent research in near future. So future possibilities of the research, we mention this point at the end of the research outline or at the end of our research project. And in this way, our process of writing the outline for doctoral research becomes complete. So I hope that your concept is very clear here. So the foremost question arises in the mind that from where to find the sources for the study. What are the sources? How to go through it? The first source is printed books, remember, which is the most authentic and reliable source for the study for any research work. Books have two types, as I told you. The primary books means the actual book written by the writer, and the book written on the primary sources is the secondary source for the study. So we have to refer primary as well secondary sources in the printed form. which is authentic and reliable source for the recent one, and we have to use recent, and especially if we are going to pursue the research in English, we have to use the foreign editions of those books. After that, we have to use newspapers, the standard newspapers. Times of India, then Indian Express, then Free Press Journal are the select newspapers that you can refer for finding the sources for the study. The next is articles. You can search newspaper articles as well as simple articles written by any writer. The next point, you can search magazines, repeated magazines, ISSN magazines, international standard book number and international standard serial number. So ISSN magazines are very much reputed. Then you can go through various websites. As I mentioned, InflibNet is the important source for the study. We can go to YouTube. We can search the related material or speeches on YouTube. We can also cite those in our study. And the reputed speeches of any renowned writer, we can take this also as a source of the important study in our research. So I think this is clear. Let us turn towards the next slide, ethics and code of conduct for research. So research ethics provides a guideline for the responsible conduct of the research. We should be very loyal, honest, truthful, and faithful while conducting the research. I very clearly mention you the one thing, that research is not cut-paste activity. You just cut it from the internet and just paste it somewhere else in your dissertation or thesis, and this is against the norms and rules of the research, remember. In addition, it educates and monitors scientists conducting research to ensure a high ethical standard. So if you want to maintain the standard of your research work, you should be quite loyal while conducting the research. As I told you, that research is not cutting pasting activity now. So what are the ethics and the code of conducting while research? The first thing, honesty. Honestly reporting data, results, methods, and procedures, and the publication status. Do not fabricate and falsify or misinterpret the data. We should be quite honest. We should be sincere while conducting the research. The second thing that we should have contain objectivity. Strive to avoid bias in experimental design, then in doing the data analysis and data interpretation, peer review, personal decisions, grant writing, expert testimony, and other aspects of the research. So we should have objective point of view while writing the research project. We should not be subjective in any sense, because the individual and the person doesn't matter in the research, remember. What matters are the point and the content and the subject matter itself. The next point that is integrity. Keep your promises and agreements, act with the sincerity, strive for consistency of the thought and action, that it is integrity in the research. The next is carefulness. We should be very careful in our research while we should mention minute details. Avoid carelessness, errors, and negligence. Carefully and critically examine your own work and the work of your peers. Keep goal records of the research activities, that we should be very careful in pursuing the research. The next point is openness. We should be open-ended. We should develop flexible attitude. We should have a student sense while writing. If I have rigid attitude, and if I think that I am working somewhere professor in the university, and I have certain ego and attitude in my heart, I can never be a research student in my life. So share data, results, ideas, tools, resources. Be open to criticism and new ideas. Respect for intellectual property. Honor patent, copyrights, and other forms of intellectual property. Do not use unpublished data, methods, or results without permission. Use proper citation method, that is I told you, ML and APL style. Give credit where credit is due. Never plagiarize, remember. Never go for plagiarism. एखादी गोष्ट कधीही चोऱ्या माऱ्या करायची नाहीये, आपल्याला खोटी सांगायची नाहीये, चोरून इकडे कटपेस्ट करायचं नाहीये. So remember. And the next is confidentiality. Protect confidential communications such as papers or the grants submitted for the publications, personal records, trade or military secrets, and patient record. So it is confidential. The next is responsible publications. Publish in order to advance research and scholarship, not to advance just your own career. Avoid wasteful and duplicative publications. So these are the ethics and the code of conduct while going through the research. Remember, the next point is responsible monitoring. Help to educate, then mentor and advise students, promote their welfare and allow them to make their own decisions. Respect for colleagues. Respect your colleagues and treat them fairly. Not never to treat them unfairly way. Okay. So this is what we say ethics are the code of conduct while running the research. Then we should be socially responsible. Social responsibility is there. Strive to promote social good and prevent or mitigate social harms through research and public education and advocacy. Then non-discrimination, never discriminate, never segregate. Avoid discrimination against colleagues or students on the basis of the sex, gender, religion, race, ethnicity, or other factors that are not related to the scientific competence and integrity. A student is student after all. We should focus on intelligence or the subject matter of the research. We should not be subjective in any sense. So this is a boy or a girl. This is Hindu or Muslim like this. No, never. Never discriminate in research. Next is competence, means skill and ability. Maintain and improve your own professional competence and expertise through lifelong education and learning. Take steps to promote competence in science as a whole. So we should be competent while persuading the research work. The next is legality. Know and obey relevant laws and institutional and government policies while persuading the research. The next thing, plagiarism, the next point. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is presenting the work or ideas from another source as your own without consent of the original author, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement to the writer. It means using someone else's work without giving them proper credit. This is plagiarism. In Marathi, we call it as a Vangmay Chaurya, Chori Karna. Plagiarism is a fraudulent representation of another person's language, thoughts, ideas, expressions as one's own original work. I request you never follow plagiarism in your research. So here are certain types of plagiarism. Direct plagiarism, copying someone else's work word by word, sentence by sentence, without giving credit to that particular person is direct plagiarism, remember. The second point is self-plagiarism. If I am using my previous published paper for the next paper, I am copying the material from my own research paper for my upcoming publications. This is self-plagiarism. So copying or producing an assignment influenced by your own previous work. Never go for self-plagiarism, I advise you as a teacher. The third thing, mosaic or patchwork plagiarism. Quoting someone else's work without quotation mark and changing the language of the original work while keeping the structure same. Remember, so this is mosaic and patchwork plagiarism. The fourth is accidental plagiarism. Unintentionally forgetting to cite the original work, misquotations, and so on. This is accidental plagiarism without intention. Unnoticingly, you forget to cite the source. This is accidental plagiarism. And the fifth is outsourcing. Paying SS Mills, friends, and hiring articles, writer, bloggers to write on your behalf. You ask someone to write research paper for you. Ask your friend or any colleague that write the draft of the research for me. This is outsourcing. Never go for it. The research should be independent activity, systematic and scientific activity, and we have to be very loyal, honest, and truthful while pursuing the research. So these are the types of plagiarism. The next is plagiarism checking softwares. So when you present your research project or your PhD thesis to the university, the first thing what university does, it checks your plagiarism. So I advise you again not to follow these wrong practices while doing the research. So what are the softwares nowadays available to check the plagiarism in the university with the respected research guide? Select softwares are free to use. Plagiarism Checker X, then Grammarly, then Copyscape, then Plaxcan, Plagiarisma, Duplicator, Turnitin, and the most important nowadays use Turnitin or Urkund. Then Authenticate, Copylix, Quitext, Paperwriter are the select softwares which have been used to check the plagiarisms in the various universities. So we should be aware of this. So thank you very much for listening me very patiently, my dear friends. I hope that here in this presentation, your concept should be cleared regarding how to write the research outline for PhD or how to write the research paper. In the end of this presentation, I mentioned some ethical code and the softwares that can be used in the university to check plagiarism. So I advise you never to follow the wrong practices while pursuing our PhD in English. Thank you very much for patient listening. Thank you very much for being with me always very positively. Let us end here this presentation. Tomorrow I will tell you the various areas related to our research activity. Thank you very much once again. Have a nice time.